Hey. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And I call to order this meeting of the Board of Education Health and Safety Committee meeting. And Mr. Messer will not be here. He's away with his family, and Ms. Bowers and myself are here to make the quorum. So the first item on our agenda is the governmental liaison report. And we have Senator Eric Kearney here in the reel, and then we have George Glover virtually.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Board Member Bowers, and Superintendent Amat. Really, since the last report, we've been focusing on two major things. One is the delegation, Hamilton County delegation, meeting with the board and the administration, and we've got some dates, and we're working through that. And then there is a meeting that we have with Senator Blessing, who's vice chair of the Senate Education Committee, and as you know, has been very open to meeting with CPS. And so we have a meeting set up with him, and that should be on your calendars, which I'm getting head nods, so that's good. And then we meet bi-weekly with Krista Boyle, who is kind of the day-to-day person who manages the relationship on behalf of the district. With respect to legislation, there's one bill that Senator Blessing is leading, and so that is something that we'll prep you all on. But that's Senate Bill 229, which we've talked about before, but it's the blending learning model for public and charter schools. It's at the bottom of page 3 of the report. I know that Mr. Glover is on the line. I'm not sure how to allow him to comment. Oh, okay. But at any rate, those are the highlights. 229 is really the one that's moving quickly through the legislature.
Eric?
And I also wanted to highlight House Bill 334 because it talks about pay increases for board members. So I imagine as some of you walk around, you might get questions about that. I think George was on, so George, you might.
Yeah, I have a question about 229. Mm-hmm. Why would we need a bill passed to be able to do this? Couldn't we just do this, Superintendent?
We are very fortunate that we had virtual and CBA, so we are ahead of the game. It's already, we've already applied for it, but some districts do not have virtual or those opportunities. But because we have been ahead of the game, we already have our IRN. Remember, we separated virtual and blended learning. So CPS is in a really good place.
Right, but I mean, we don't need a bill to do this. We've been doing this, right?
For CPS, other districts have not.
But couldn't their boards and superintendents decide to do that? Or, you know, I don't know. I don't understand why there has to be a bill.
I will ask
if we have the authority as boards to do this anyway.
I would like Connie to speak to that, but truly, the state was not giving out our IRNs for blended learning. So we did it ahead of the pandemic. So already had the IRN number. Other districts who tried to do it were unable to get the IRN, but we were pre-pandemic before it. I just want to make sure I'm factual.
So this is for a new school, not for a program within a school, or if we went to blended because, I mean, we did blended with Hyde Park Elementary with algebra. I mean, we've been doing this.
So to speak to Ms. Amat's point,
what the ODE requires now is that any school that is going to have some form of kids doing blended work, we have to submit a form. And there was a law that said you had to have the form submitted by July to state that you're going to do that, and you had to indicate whether or not it was going to be school-based or district-wide. And that's something that we have to do every year. I don't know why they're doing the new law, but my thing is we still have to let ODE know that we're going to be doing it.
I guess that's my question. Why does the legislature feel the need to do this if it's already under our authority anyway, and we're reporting to ODE? Is there something different, or who's pushing this?
Senator Blessing, he's the sponsor of the bill, and it requires, for instance, that plans are submitted for the school year 2021-2022. It requires remediation plans, and then it has some changes to the state report card, adding a superintendent member to the state report card review committee. It has provisions for special needs students and provisions related to quarantine students. So that gives you an overview of the bill. So it's more than just the blended learning model, but that's just the snippet that we provided, or that's provided in the bill.
It just seems to me that this is more appropriately handled as, an ODE regulation than a piece of legislature. I just, to me, it's not a bad thing. It just seems like an overreach, and that there are more pressing things that the legislature could do. But anyway, that's my opinion. Yes, Ms. Bowers.
Thank you. And I have an inquiry that I have a comment. Didn't we present something last school year about blended learning?
Yes.
Okay, so which was the application, I think, that you're talking about? I remember us having to submit something by a deadline to say that we were doing blended learning for accountability. But go ahead. You're okay. Go ahead. So that is not new. That form it started last year, but I'm thinking that this streamlines more to accountability, because I know when we did switch to blended during the pandemic, there was some concerns around our students with disabilities. So that keeps us accountable. I think this bill may keep us accountable as a public school district, even though we did do blended learning, but there was some things that didn't go well with that. But so this is kind of like a check and balance is what I see it as. Chair Member Bates.
I don't disagree, and I don't think it's bad. I just think that it's more appropriately handled by ODE than by the legislature.
I think the superintendent had a great comment that CPS was ahead of the game. And so maybe there are other districts, well, I know that there are other districts that have not submitted a plan for either continuation of blended learning or termination. I think George had something to add.
Eric, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can we get his picture up there? Oh, can you turn your camera on?
I'm trying my best. There we go.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was simply going to mention and point out that Senate Bill 229, as sponsored by Senator Blessing, already passed the Senate, and it did pass as an emergency measure. So if it passes the House as an emergency measure, it will become effective immediately and not have to wait the standard 90-day waiting period. And they have begun hearings in the House side as well. So that's a bill we clearly want to keep an eye on, because I do think it's moving quickly as an emergency measure.
Okay, thank
The
you.
hearing in the House is tomorrow.
Right.
Any other questions about 229, or really any of the other pieces of legislature that we have?
The only item I would add is that our meeting with Senator Blessing is scheduled for November 12th, 9 o'clock a.m. at Gamble Montessori High School. We're working on the budget. Huh?
Understand.
I'm sorry.
George, November 12th at 9 a.m. at Gamble.
Ah. Good, November 12th, 9 a.m. And our delegation,
No, it's not. That's the Senator Blessing meeting.
oh,
The
just,
delegation meeting, we had to aggregate, or what do you call it? Solicit all the dates that all of you could make it, and obviously the superintendent and all of the legislators. So we've got it narrowed down to a few dates, and I don't know whether Krista has picked that date yet.
okay. Very good.
I don't know.
And who will be in attendance at that meeting? Or I would assume board members are welcome.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's for the board. It's a one-on-one with Senator Blessing. George kind of led that, getting Senator Blessing to attend, and it's to showcase the great students at Gamble, and to so that you can have, for instance, you can ask the senator about 229, or the superintendent could ask him about what he foresees coming before the Senate Education, Primary and Secondary Education Committee. So it's that type of discussion with him. And then, as you recall, the bigger meetings are more general and not as intense or intimate, or, you can't talk a lot of shop in those.
Okay, great. And who on the administrative side is helping to organize that? I know last time we had some kind of a breakfast kind of thing. Is that something
It's Krista Boy.
Krista's going to organize all
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, we talk to Krista every week, and she's running point from the administration.
Good. Okay. So thank you very much. That sounds like a great opportunity, and Senator Blessing is always welcome in our schools. He's been very supportive of us. Any other questions or discussion on any of this, Ms. Bauer? Okay. Superintendent?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Can I turn this off?
All right, the next item on our agenda is Jessica Shelley, the Good Food Purchasing Program, which we're getting an update on, and this is something that I've been looking forward to. I was pretty excited when we
Good.
got to put this on the agenda.
I like to hear that. You're looking forward to it. I love it. So thank you, Chairmember Bates and Member Bowers and Interim Superintendent Amat. I am going to talk to you guys today regarding the Good Food Purchasing Program. If you guys remember, back in February of 2019, we actually created a board policy, 8525, around Good Food Purchasing Program that put a charge to the Student Dining Services Department to strive to make sure that all of our food that we procure is meeting certain value chains. I'm going to wait till the presentation. So we had a little bit of a pause, obviously due to COVID. So this is actually our school year 1920 report. That is also because the Center for Good Food Purchasing Program, who actually does our evaluation, our third-party audit, was also on a pause due to COVID. So they recently have completed our school year 1920, and they are currently processing our 2021 school year. But we always have to wait to the end of our fiscal year so we can give them all of our procurement information. Next slide, please. So a little bit of a recap. Good Food Purchasing Program is around 5 main pillars that we strive to achieve the highest recognition we can. Nutrition, obviously, environmental sustainability, valued workforce, local economies, and animal welfare. So everything we do in our procurement is aligned with these 5 values, and we always make sure that those are in the forefront of everything we do when we outsource and bring new products into our kitchens. Next slide, please. And I am really happy to say that in 1920, we were able to hit 3 out of our 5 baselines, and achieved 25 total points. Some of the highlights of our summary here, we actually invested 1.3 million in our local food economy, including hundreds of thousands of dollars into small and mid-sized family-owned businesses and women-owned farms, which was a priority for us. We were also able to increase our amount of never antibiotic ever programs to 19% of all of the chicken products that we served. And we were really happy to get this takeaway from the center, is that we actually go beyond the baseline requirements in most of the things that we have strived to do, which has given us these extra points that allow us to have really leapfrogged. Next slide, please. So the COVID did impact us. There's no way around this one. And I was appreciative that they actually delineated our time frame before and after COVID for purchasing, because as you are aware, COVID put a screeching halt to a lot of the things we were doing in terms of salad bars and fresh local produce. It also really impacted our ability to do a lot of our quick scratch and scratch cooking because we had to go to prepackaged and ready to serve meals. That was hard for our team. I'll tell you, I am so proud of them because they have stepped up and been creative no matter what was thrown at them. They have continued to pivot and have really put their full heart into making sure that every single one of our students always has a healthy and delicious meal. And you can see that we really didn't have much of an impact to COVID on our 1920 school year, but I caveat this one because I'm pretty sure that 2021 is not going to be as dynamic as this year is, just for the pure fact that our supply chain is pretty much broken at this point, and we are trying to source as much as we can, but it is impacting from our level down to our distributors, down to our manufacturers, down to our farmers. Next slide, please. But this is what I'm most proud of, is that we almost doubled where we were the year before in terms of our total points. Going through our baselines, the first little yellow is our local economies. Sustainability is the little green leaf. The hands holding the wheat is our valued workforce. The little purple cow is animal welfare, and the final one is nutrition. And as you can see, that's one that we've consistently hit, and then built on and brought in valued workforce. And finally, this last year evaluation, we were able to bring in local economies. Next slide, please. So this gives us the highest star rating we can actually have. We aren't yet technically a good food provider, because to have that official designation, you have to have all 5 baselines met. However, being able to say that we are a 5-star school district is an incredible accomplishment, and one that only 2 others in the entire country have at this point. Next slide, please. So a couple of key trends I want to highlight that the team was amazing in making sure that we focused on was increasing local produce. And this was actually I always look for the silver lining. And the silver lining with COVID is that we were able to source a tremendous amount of more local produce than we ever have before. Usually the restaurants sweep in and grab that local produce because it's at a higher premium. But during COVID, the restaurants were closed. So we became the lifeline for these farmers and restaurants because we were still there to buy this local produce. So we really prided ourselves on really being able to invest back in Cincinnati and keep those farmers afloat by purchasing their produce. That's going to be harder now that the restaurants are back in action, but we're determined to keep that partnership that we have going with our local farmers. Also, the certified raise without routine antibiotics increase. This is going to be a challenging one to keep going, mainly for the fact that many companies are getting out of the K-12 industry. The supply chain has become very demanding, and we aren't able to source as much as we were before from our regular suppliers. A couple of our distributors have completely pulled out of K-12, and so we are searching actively right now for a replacement chicken product. One of the things we've done a tremendous good job on is our clean label initiative. And I'll go a little bit deeper into that one in the next slide, but we've really taken it upon ourselves to task to go over and above what Good Food Purchasing Program does and add on a different layer of clean label. And that is just eliminating things that aren't nutritionally value added into the items we serve our kids. We also really work and focus on local, women-owned, and unionized distributors, making sure that we're focusing on our valued workforce category for good food purchasing. Next slide, please. So here is the Clean Label Project. We partnered with a group called Lifetime Foundation, and we are actually we're chosen as the district to help them analyze a software program that goes through and looks at every single ingredient list of an item that schools serve to categorize it as approved or unapproved in Clean Label. So as you can see, these are all things that we have actually had out of our school in our meal programs for the past 4 years. And we are so far ahead of the ball game, we're actually adding a couple more on. So you can see this year, we've actually taken on sugar alcohols. So lots of times you'll see the sugar-free sweeteners as a label, and those are being eliminated from our schools this year. And the benzos and sulfites are also being eliminated this year. But for a long time, we've not had any dyes, caramel colors, nitrites. You hear a lot about the BHA, BHT, MSG. All these different flour and conditioning thickeners have all been gone from our products for a long time. We've also kind of stepped up a little bit higher and not allow any high fructose corn syrup. And moreover, we restrict any kind of additional sugar, so only 8 grams per 1 ounce of whole grain. That's incredibly challenging, but we believe it's incredibly important because a lot of the programs also try and counterbalance that sugar limit by putting artificial sweeteners into their products. So yes, their added sugars might be low, but it's also a saccharin addition to it. So we're really striving to make sure people understand the value of a plant-based sweetener like a beet sugar or a stevia. Next slide, please. So a couple things on our planning agenda for this coming year is making sure that we really work on our promotion and awareness. I don't think that many families even know that we have a good food purchasing program, that we have a clean label initiative, and all the things that we're doing in our schools. So we have been working closely with Green Umbrella's Good Food Policy Program to make sure we work on a joint marketing campaign together. And we decided to focus first on our local economies and our farmers. So what we did this year is we actually created farmer trading cards that we hand out on our schools when we hand out the different fruits and vegetables to the kids. And on the back of it actually has a map of Ohio, where that farm is located, what we get from that farm, the farmer's name, and some information about them. And we've been handing them out as we serve that produce from the local farms. And the kids are just loving it. We actually got an email today from the Sailor Park preschool program, and they actually took it upon themselves to write thank you notes back to the farmers. And so they're going to be presenting those to the farmers coming up in the future. And to keep marketing with that, we've also created these signs that we actually hang in our lunchrooms too. So when we feature different farms of that particular week, we actually hang up the farmers. So when we do our roasted squash, that's our whole house farms. So we make sure we put the whole house farmer up there so the kids can make the connection between the trading card, the poster, and also the fresh produce that we're serving from that farm. We also want to keep those local procurement partnerships going. We really want to help make sure that we are investing back into our local farmers. We aren't allowed to bring in produce from a farm in the backyard. We have to make sure it's something called GAP certified, which stands for Good Agricultural Practices. This means that we are assured that they're using proper kinds of natural pesticide protection. The soil has been tested appropriately. And we really want to try and get some of our local farms USD organic certified, because that would also elevate not only them, but also elevate the food that we serve to the kids in terms of our good food purchasing standards and protocols. We also are really trying to work on onboarding other large institutions. Right now, we are the only people out there that hold ourselves accountable to these high standards. Nobody else is doing it. And if we had universities, hospitals, large corporations, other school districts also doing the same kind of procurement that we are doing, we would be able to really widen that supply chain and get the bottleneck on. Right now, we're the only ones out there trying to source this food, and so there's not a lot of incentive for companies to go and create these opportunities for us. So we're really trying to work with these larger institutions to get on board. Finally, there is program fiscal sustainability that we always have to consider. This program has cost us an average of about $1.2 million annually to maintain and continue to advance the good food purchasing standards that we have accomplished so far. Right now, with our supply chain issues, we're spending about 20% more on our food and paper good products that we serve in our lunchrooms right now. And we don't expect that to get any better into next fall. So we are making sure that we are maintaining where we're at, but advancing is going to be challenging because we want to make sure we're being very fiscally responsible with any money that we get from USDA and how we're investing it back into our programs. Next slide, please. So I kind of look at it like a big table you sit at a restaurant, and all four legs of a table have to be balanced, because otherwise you sit on the table, right, and wobbles, and you're like, it's not balanced unless I take into consideration all things. And so when I'm looking at fueling our lifelong learners, I'm making sure that I'm looking at the student preferences and their expectations. That's one of the things we struggle with animal welfare and our scoring there, is that our kids just don't like falafel or hummus or tofu. We will not bring in something like an Impossible Burger, because that's actually more processed than anything else we serve currently. And we also don't like to do any kind of hidden soy additives into a product, because we want to make sure we're being very science conscientious, especially with our young teenage girls. And then making sure that we are following USDA and ODE regulations. No matter how much I might want a product, if it doesn't fit into the requirements of what I am bound to serve, I risk a fiscal penalty and us losing the program. So I really want to make sure that I'm high standards in terms of regulations. And then budget and fiscal solvency. Really making sure that I don't touch the general fund, that my enterprise fund pays for everything and all initiatives that we are doing for our students in our programs, and that we are not taking any money from the general fund. And then finally, it's balancing in that good food purchasing program, working with our community partners to make sure that we are trying to serve our children the absolute best meals we can that meet the 5 pillars of the good food purchasing program. And I believe that's my last slide. Yeah. So we are currently being processed for 2021. The impact of COVID is probably going to be reflected in our point and star rating, but I've been telling my team this since the very beginning, is that we're not taking steps backward. We're not rolling back. We're pressing a pause button, and then we're going to move forward as soon as we can, stronger and better than ever. Any questions?
First of all, thank you for that. And let me go over this, and then I'm gonna give you the charge. Well, administration, a positive charge. First of all, the local economy investment. I remember, probably not in February, but after February, I think I remember sitting in and hearing you present all of these wonderful. I might have come as a community member then in February of 2019, but nevertheless, I was amazed by the focus on transitioning this whole thing about the health and welfare of our students. So thank you for continuing that. And then congratulations to your team for their agility during the COVID pandemic, as well as all of our other teams in the district. Transitioning from that, just the economy across the nation was a mess across the world. So kudos to them. Regarding the animal welfare process, we didn't have any checks in that box. Is that why we are not really was that the only column that we're kind of like missing? Is that animal welfare, lining that up?
Animal welfare is a category that we have never been able to move the needle on. And that is because to do that, we have to be serving either level 3 certified organic for our meat and our proteins, for example, a milk or a beef or a chicken, or we have to eliminate it and replace it with a plant-based protein. So one of the things we do is we actually have something called Fuel Forward Fridays, which is actually a vegetarian option. We don't serve an actual meat product on Fridays in our schools, but it doesn't matter what we menu. It matters how much we procure. Mm-hmm. So I can menu it to the cows come home. I could have falafel and hummus and tofu and everything every single day of the week. But if the kids don't take it, mm-hmm. then it's not going to move the needle in terms of our procurement numbers. And that's where we're getting stuck. We have had some really great success lately. We just tested it at Clark Friday. It is a pulsed lentil, and we actually are doing a mix of it one-on-one with our ground beef, and we're to make a nacho. And the kids were like, "We can't taste any difference." Like, yeah, So I'm not sure how a full 2 ounces of lentil will go over, but when I blend a 1 ounce lentil with the ground beef. So we're looking more into how we can be creative in that sense. We don't want to hide the food. All the things you hear about, oh, I have black bean puree that I hid in the brownies. It doesn't do any good. That doesn't teach our kids the value of good nutrition. So we're really trying to be transparent with them, let them know what is in our food, because we don't want to feel like we're tricking them. So we're hoping to find more recipes. Our chef is working in our test kitchen every day, trying to find new recipes that we can include plant-based proteins that will help us move the purchasing needle up. But we're a long way. We're a long way.
And I thank you for that. And if a couple more things, Chair Bates. Sustainability for the workforce, us being able to help sustain that for our farmers during the pandemic, I know that was huge for them, even when there was some blockage with the grocers just because of the situation. So I want to commend you for that. And then the question I have and the charge I probably have is, how come we're not talking about this on Channel 5? Why are we not publicizing all the great things that we're doing around health and wellness, and even what you just presented was awesome. The farmers that we're using, all this nutritional things. We just had the Rockdale Community Garden, which falls into all of this, and then we're talking about ag ed and different schools. Gamble was the Green Ribbon School. We have environmental agriculture, I think, at Pleasant Hill. But this is huge. These are the things that I'm trying to figure out why we're not talking about this in the public. And I'm glad that you're saying you're informing the parents. But I think the more people that know that what we're doing and understanding why we're doing it, that's education by itself. And I think those are thumbs up for our district. And I think this should be communicated more in the public that we are trailblazers in this, because I don't think other school districts are doing this and being fiscally responsible. Thank you for being fiscally responsible. So that's my plug, and I appreciate the time.
Well, maybe one thing we could do when we talk to Senator Blessing is tell him about our program and see if he can sponsor legislation to encourage what we're doing. And that would have an impact on, I mean, we're a huge farming state. So let's put that on our agenda. I mean, certainly you could, or if you're able to go, Ms. Bowers. Yeah, I think that would be awesome to bring up to the senator.
Yeah.
And be a leader in another area. But, you know, that's such a good fit for our state, you know, something that, you know, it's not just an urban thing. This is across the board, something that would be a very positive influence on our students and our farmers. Okay, so that's your assignment, Ms. Bowers.
And I would be remiss before I leave to make sure I do give kudos where kudos is due, and that is a lot to our purchasing department, because a lot of this stuff had to be written into our bid contracts, and it was brand new language, and they really worked, you know, glove in hand with us to make sure that we had appropriate bid language, that we still didn't scare away people from coming and bidding on our products, but in a way that was really demonstrative, so we could get the data that we needed to drill down to get to this level. So kudos to purchasing department for really helping us. You may absolutely keep those. I'm telling you, I have some farmer posters in my office because, right?
All right. So we're on to number 3, sexual abuse, discrimination, harassment prevention. So this is on our work plan, right? So this is something that we examine and provide oversight.
Yes, so Superintendent Amott is passing around a memo. I am playing the role of Liz Wolf today, our curriculum manager for science. So as you all know, the Ohio Revised Code prescribes that all school districts should teach about sexual abuse, discrimination, and harassment. So if you look under the second bullet, under the CPS health curriculum, we use a curriculum for our smallest learners called ETR Health Smart. and that is a curriculum that has been adopted. And in the early grades, you can see that many of the lessons are about safe feelings are healthy feelings, and you can call for help when you need it. And you can get help for unsafe touch and the different types of troublesome feelings, and for our smallest children. So there are lessons for each of them. With our 7th through 12th graders, the curriculum that is used is Goodhart Wilcox. And at the middle school level, the topics fall into 2 broad categories: social health, which is covered in one of the units, and then wellness and human sexuality, which is covered in another. And then again, at the high school, again, we are obligated to provide instruction according to Ohio Revised Code. So in those classrooms, healthy family and peer relationships as one such topic, and then dealing with conflict, violence, and abuse. So we wanted to be able to share with the board that we are indeed covering these topics in our various classrooms with adopted curricula under the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you, Ms. Bonte, for this update regarding the Ohio Revised Code. I have a question about who teaches these courses, in addition to what happens in a process of disclosure when these conversations are happening. And I'm just concerned about discussions happening in a full classroom about some things, or something being revealed in a classroom, and how is that handled?
Yes, so typically these topics that are for our little ones are covered in the gym class, where health and is covered for our little people. And the other classes, they are covered in science or in health classes. We completely understand your question about if a child is triggered by a conversation or has information they wish to share. We make sure that students understand who the safe people are in their school, and cover those topics regularly with our students.
And just a follow-up for the instructors, I know that science and health are the teachers. You're saying that teach the training for these courses. When does that occur? Is it professional development? Because this too can be a trigger for the instructor if this is not the realm for which they're used to working.
Sure, I will check with Liz Wolf to make absolutely sure, but it's, I think, covered on an annual basis. But I will check with her and then email you with that.
Next agenda. Microphone on. The next agenda item is student conduct and the quarterly discipline data report.
So as you all know, we just concluded our first quarter. That doesn't even seem possible. So we have started quarter 2. So let me share with you some of the data. As we look at data, we are going always back to 2018, 2019. That was our last quote unquote normal year. So we know that exclusionary consequences in quarter 1, 18 were at 17.7%. We have dropped to 15.6 in quarter 1 of 2021. However, we know that although our disproportionality rate for our African American students has dropped 4% from 18 to 21, we are still disproportionate in this area. So even though we went from 86 to 82%, we have a lot of work to do. There is a silver lining in that cloud. We are working in 27 different elementary schools for our quality improvement around social emotional learning. So our school social workers are working with small groups of students. In those 27 schools, we saw a 30% reduction in overall disciplinary consequences between quarter 1 of 18-19 and quarter 1 of 21-22. So our social workers have been, along with our teachers and administrators, have been working really hard. Behind on page 2 and 3, you can see the data that provided the information that I just shared with you in terms of overall exclusions by emergency removal, expulsion, and out of school suspension. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just a comment. So this information, you said that the school social workers are providing the SEL courses and all,
PABS
PABS
instruction.
and so that may have started mid to end the first quarter.
So some schools, this is our third year for SEL. Every year we pick up an additional grouping of schools. So in some schools, yes, it is just starting in midway through the quarter. Some started at the beginning of the quarter, but some schools have actually, they're in their second or third year of implementing.
Okay, so I'm happy about them doing that, but I also feel like this is an anomaly year just because in the community, what I'm hearing across the board is that there's just a different kind of cloud over students in general, not just CPS, across all districts.
Yes.
It's just because of the pandemic.
Yes.
So I'm very, it's just, I got the data, but I think there's another layer that we're missing coming out, not really coming out, but being back in school since the pandemic, that we're seeing other things.
So tell me more. Are you thinking more about, are you interested in mental health? Is that what you mean by
Not necessarily that,
mental health?
Emotional regulation in general.
Sure.
It's difficult in parochial, in suburbs, just everywhere. Just because of what has happened in the pandemic, I think is heightened.
Mm-hmm.
More schools have said that they're seeing more referrals for support and or discipline earlier, when you don't really see this until maybe late October, November. They're seeing it really, really early.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just keeping that in mind as we go through. Not as happy about the change in the African American and Black referrals, just in general. Glad there's a 4%, but still a lot more work to do around that.
We agree. I will say that a lot of our schools, to address emotional regulation, have installed and implemented mind peace rooms and really teaching students about self-regulation before they get to a point that it results in a disciplinary consequence. And we have many, many, many schools using that, and many classrooms actually, with great success for the very reasons that you've mentioned.
Do we have data on the effects of that? Because I know some schools might struggle with space still for the mind peace rooms, who want them. I've heard that. But if we can get data on that, I mean, that would be helpful to be involved that prevents any of these kind of offenses.
Yes.
Which is the objective, right?
Yes. Oh, for sure. And I think for schools, some schools that have had a lack of space are actually encouraging teachers to create mind peace or like self-regulation corners. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. No, I'll get that for you for our next meeting.
I think it would also be very helpful if you could break down under exclusionary consequences, if it was a level 1 offense, level 2 offense, level 3 offense.
Oh, sure.
I think that would be very helpful, don't you, Ms. Bowers?
I mean, I got the general number of that, but I mean, what you're seeing for this year.
We certainly can provide that.
Can you follow up with the first quarter data? I mean, you could send it to us in written form. You don't have to wait until the next meeting.
Okay, yes.
That would be great. Do you have any other comments or questions? Thank you very much for that. And we are on to COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm not sure if this is going to be presented tonight.
You will.
It's going to be presented at the full meeting. We don't have to repeat it here.
So tonight you are just going to receive a paper copy of this packet, but I did want to share a sign of hope with you all. So at the beginning of the school year, we were averaging about 1,300 students quarantined a day. and that number has fallen as of today to 427. So signs of hope for COVID. So yes.
Oh, it's because of the mask mandate.
I think that, and we're seeing large, yes, and vaccinations and just all kinds of different reasons. But yes, very, very, very excited that our students are in school.
So how will the new recommendation today that came out, how will that affect us? Will we have to take a relook at our policy? I know at one point I was trying to, urge that policy to be broader because we're going to have changes all the time. So have you had a chance to take a look at that yet?
So Dan Hoyen and I actually had a brief meeting about it this afternoon. I don't think the mask to stay impacts us as much because we're already a masked district by the policy that our board passed. Where it does have impact on us is the test to play for our athletes. So students will be able to continue playing as long as they're asymptomatic if they test at day 5. So that is a change for us. So we're excited about that. So we're going to look through that and then provide some guidance.
Right, yes. Is that something the board will have to act on? Or is it in effect immediately?
This was offered up today. We haven't yet talked with our health department about it, but they fall under the auspices, as you all know, of ODH. So we haven't yet had conversations with our athletic department, and it was just released this afternoon, but we're excited about potential implications.
Right, yeah, because we'll be, in competition with students from other districts.
Right.
We'll want to know what they're doing,
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Any other comments, Ms. Bowers? Okay, any other business? Well, kind of to piggyback on the meeting with Senator Blessing, if we can if you can't do it, I'll do it, but we'll need Ms. Shelley's help with that. Yep. Yeah, if we had some support, because I think that, to recommend that this be initiated statewide, it would be a big plus.
And I don't know if we want to involve some of our community partners in that as well. I know Green Umbrella has been incredibly instrumental and supportive. So I might reach out to Dr. Oldfield to see if she could join us at the meeting as well, because she could speak to how they've been trying to galvanize additional districts and institutions into this program, if that's something that you'd be interested in as well.
So who's setting the agenda for that meeting? Is it the administration or is it, okay. Okay, so that would be the recommendation from this committee, that we include that in the meeting with Senator Blessing. I don't know if we need to bring it, is that fine with you? Great, thank you. Okay, anything else, Ms. Bowers? Superintendent? We are. Thank you, everybody, for the great presentations, and we'll be looking for the follow-up on the discipline data and the meeting with Senator Blessing. Thank you.